Good morning. This morning we've got Paul Lucey, who's a former head of innovation and technology and strategy at various multinational mining companies. He's going to be talking to us this morning about your startup and getting into these mining groups and what you've got to be wary of and what you've got to look out for. Really hope you enjoy and have a great morning.
All right, so I could be classed as an entrepreneur. I've got 22 years worth of experience in the resource sector. That's where I come from, which is one of the most conservative industries still out there today. It's quite difficult to actually bring in new concepts, and we'll talk about the rate of change and why that is so as we go through this process. But what is a conservative company? Oh, look, the Bluetooth doesn't work over there. That's better. All right, okay. So it's about the 1950s that there was a study done in terms of actually understanding the difference between companies and what was a conservative company and what was a forward-thinking company. A lot of this work was done by some guy called Douglas McGregor. Now, he was in the advertisement area, and that's where they wanted to actually sell concepts into organisations and to the general public. And that's where the divergence started to think in terms of here's an old school conservative style company. How do we actually change the company to be more progressive and bring innovation in? So typically you find you have a large workforce, huge embedded infrastructure costs, subject to market pricing, highly regulated industry, it's mature, and it's typically you're not selling a digital product, okay? They're also the hallmarks for disruption. So that allows someone to come in and undercut them and take away their business. So that's the danger of being a conservative company. They also believe that the employees lazy must be closely supervised, and they create strict rules and define rewards. Now that makes it extremely difficult for change and to bring new concepts to an organisation, and particularly if you're within that organisation, you've got defined rules of which you actually go through. And there's a slide later on where I'll talk about where people who come in, you employ someone because you think, wow, this guy is really, really creative, let's bring him on board. And then we'll knock all that creative stuff out of him and he can come and do a normal job with us, because that's what you do. Now, in my previous job, before I became a consultant early this year, a couple of years ago I became the group head of technology and innovation for a large global resource company. And they said, we want to be leaders in what we do. We want to be the leaders out there. And I thought, this is great, this is fantastic. So I rolled out my plan. I said, this is what we're going to do. And the first thing they said is, who else is doing this? And I said, well, no one. We're going to be the leaders. This is going to be great. Ooh, I don't know about that. We would prefer to do something that someone's already done before, because that'll make us more comfortable. I said, well, all right, well, let's not be leaders. Let's be fast followers. Oh, no. We need to be leaders. So that causes a problem for me on how I actually do that. So the first thing I said is, the first rule of change is, to do something different, you must first do something different. You can't keep doing the same thing. So I started to change my behaviour, I started to change the way that I interacted with people, and I started to pull myself out of the conservative model that we had. So I started to dress like this. So in the mining industry, you still have people, they still dress in dress pants, a shirt, you go to the office, they have their nice little office and that kind of stuff. So I started to rip all the stuff out of my office, I got different furniture, and I started to turn up to meetings like this. So first of all, people thought, that's not right. You know, we've got a standard here. And I said, well, I'm different, I need to look different, and we need to do something different if we're going to actually make change. So if I'm trying to sell something different, I need to brand myself as something different. And I just recently did a piece of work last month for a resource company. And we did a presentation to the board. So we had all these consultants here, they all got introduced. The lead project guy said, this is a guy from a consulting firm, he's got a PhD in this, he's got a degree in this is what he's bringing, this is all the stuff they did. They went through that kind of stuff. He comes to me and he goes, and this is Paul. And that was it. And the CEO goes, hi Paul. And that's it, because I was my own brand, they actually understood who I was and what I was bringing to the table, and I was bringing something different. All right, now this is an interesting little exercise that I normally run when I do presentations for the last couple of years. This is done by a guy called Everett Rogers. Again, he was did stuff in the advertisement world, and now it's used extensively in actually understanding how you actually get a product into a company and out into a market. So I don't know if you're aware of the law of diffusion, but this is done on the iPad, and this is incredibly accurate. I've done it with groups of about 100 people. From a cross-sectional area, and it works out that when I ask the questions, you get a percentage across the group. So I'm going to do it today, and I expect a different result to what I normally get. I expect it to be towards this end, but let's see how accurate I am. So in terms of innovators, who went and brought the first iPad, this is iPad 1, when it came out in the first week? Show of hands. All right, so there's 2 of us. Okay. Who went and brought an iPad in the first 6 months? The first iPad? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Who had an iPad in the first 18 months of its release? So that's an iPad 1 or an iPad 2? All right. Okay. And who's got an iPad now? All right. And anyone who doesn't own an iPad? No. Anyone who's never owned an iPad, I should say. Okay. Yeah. So that's not a bad reflection of what you've actually got there. So that shows market penetration of a device. So there's 2 things that you can learn from that. One is that, and I'll use the Steve Jobs example, is that he said, I do not have innovation processes, I just employ good people. And he's quite correct in what he's saying. So he employs people up this end of the scale. So he hunts them down and he employs them. So they are very creative in terms of actually understanding a new product and what it's actually going to be doing. The second one is, you need to be marketing to this group of people here. And we'll see that on the next one, which is a bit clearer. So a conservative company, now let's see if this arrow works. No, I have to point. Okay. Conservative companies start here. To get an idea into an organisation, you don't need to get the entire organisation up to here, but you need to get the part of the organisation that you're focusing on with your product up to here. So if you've got an organisation with 50,000 people, you don't need to get 50,000 people up there. You can't do it. I know, I've tried. But you can get 500 or 600 people up to that point. And there's a series of processes and systems that you actually do that. The chasm here come in about 20 years ago, and that was when it looked at that for every successful product out there, and I mean by successful product as in it actually works, it functions, and it's probably better than the incumbent, less than 1 in 12 of them will get into that, will get across here into the market. So that's a very, very high failure rate for products. There's been a whole series of studies in the last 10 years where you can improve that by 4 times. And a lot of that work is based on what's happened in the tech industry over the last 10 years and actually understanding the rate of change on how that actually works. So, this is the formula that I looked at when I was sitting in my office. So I would get maybe 50 to 100 people a month come in with a brand new product saying this was going to change my life. So I'd be sitting there in my very expensive chair. They'd come in and they'd say, hi, I'm Joe Bloggs from blah company and I've got product A to sell you. Now, when I'm actually looking at a product, I need to actually understand the need. So I will first go and have a look at a need, at the needs of the company to actually understand what we actually need to do. Then I'll look at the current technology. Can I solve it with the current technology? No. If I can't solve it with the current technology, I'll go and look for another product. So the innovation is the size of the disruption that you're actually going to do. The rate of change, and this is the critical thing for a conservative company, is how I actually get that into an organisation at an acceptable rate. Because you can have the best product in the world, and most of the products that came to me in my office were better than what we actually had. But the reason I turned them down is because I knew it was going to cost 5 or 6 times the cost of the product to actually integrate it within my organisation. And I had to look at the benefit I was going to get for that and whether the need actually suited the amount of effort required to actually get in there. In a conservative company, it is extremely difficult to remove the incumbent. In fact, there's groups of organisations who live and thrive off ensuring that the incumbent stays in. All right, so here we've got a rate of change. So in terms of, we've got years on this side and we've got the size of the impact. Now we know the tech industry changes every year because if you buy a phone, smartphone today, in a year's time there's a model that's 15 to 20% better than what you've actually got. And it happens every year, so it's a pretty big impact. If you go and buy a computer, it's going to be out of date in a very, very short period of time. So the disruption rate is very, very high. The automotive industry. The automotive industry changes every 4 years in terms of a product development. So it's not just a single part of a piece of that automobile, it's the whole thing. So it's the whole package that they sell. Now that come out of the 1950s and 60s, where the state of California started to bring in stringent rules in terms of automobile manufacturing. And it took 4 years to get through the Senate. So what that did is that set a rate of change for the automotive industry. And then after a period of time, then the legislation changed to accommodate the 4 years, because that was the paradigm that was created at that particular point in time. And it still exists today. So every 4 years, you know a company's going to bring out a new model, and it's going to be better than what it was 4 years ago. Oil and gas. Oil and gas has a pretty large disruption every 10 years. If you look back to the 1970s when they had the oil crisis, they got around that by drilling deeper. The next one after that, they had directional drilling. After that, they had shale gas, and now they're looking at these big, gigantic platforms. So there's a series of massive interventions that changes every 10 years for the oil and gas industry. They're aware of this. They focus on it. They're probably the best organisation in the world for collaborating to solve their problems as a group. They're like a gigantic cartel, and they do it extremely well. Mining, the area that I focus on, it's way down here. It takes about 15 years to get a new product into the mining industry, and the impact is quite low. And typically what you do is you just buy a bigger truck, or a bigger piece of equipment, or bigger something, because that's effectively what you do. And it's very cycled. They have booms and busts. I mean, we've just had the boom last year, now they're going bust. You know, that's typical of this style of organisation. It's a classic, old school, conservative style company. Now we know, and the best way to actually understand the size and disruption of an industry is you have a look at the magazines associated with these things. So if you look at a tech industry style magazine, if you look at one that's a year old, you're going to find nothing interesting in it, you're just going to throw it over there. If you look at an automotive magazine, if you look at one that's a year old, there'll still be some stuff in there that's relevant. If you look at one that's 4 years old, it's pretty dated and you're going to go, wow, this is old. Same with oil and gas, but if you look at a mining one from 10 years ago, you open it up, you're going to go, wow, I brought that piece of equipment yesterday. That's fantastic, because that's exactly what happens within that industry. And these companies base their entire model, the OEMs base their entire model on ensuring that there's limited change. All right, so late last year I changed my model. I used a different set of mathematical equations, and I come up with a different result. So instead of using statistical information looking backwards, I used a set of mathematics looking forward to actually understand what we need to actually do to change a conservative company. And this worked much, much better for me. So effectively what I said is that it's very similar. You have the incumbent technology, you have the new technology, you still have the rate of change, but we're looking for the opportunity. So if I use that previous example I used before, when you go into a company and you say, hi, I'm Joe Bloggs, I'm from blah, and I've got product A to sell you. I have to think really, really hard what this product is going to do for me. Where is the opportunity? Because quite often, I would have senior people within the company come up to me and they'd say, I've just gone to a conference, I've seen a fantastic piece of technology, it's really, really great, go and find a use for it. Now that's called tech shopping. 99% of the time when you do tech shopping, it will fail. It's very difficult to grab a piece of sexy technology and try and find a spot to put it in. You're better off looking for the opportunities and then working out what's actually going to fit there. So this is a key lesson here. And I've had a few people do it to me. They've come up and they've said, hi, I'm Joe Bloggs. I've got an opportunity for you that's going to solve these problems. And this is the way it'll integrate into your organization. It talks to this product, and this product. When I hear that, that is fantastic. The first thing I will say is, sorry, what was your name? Who do you work for, and what's your product? Because that's got me interested. I don't have to think anymore, because someone is selling me an opportunity I can put in my organization. And that's worth gold. So when you've got a product out there, you're not trying to sell a product, you're trying to sell an opportunity to someone, and you want to work out how it's going to make their life better and how you're going to fit it into their life. And that's pretty integral when you're dealing with conservative companies.
Well, how do you put values in your formula?
If you look at you'll give this a value of 1, all right, because it's the incumbent. The product that you've got, or the new product, will be better in certain circumstances. So it might be 20% better. So you give it a factor of 1.2. But that's diluted by the rate of change. So you actually need to understand. So there's a lot of products out there that are better than the incumbent, but then you look at the cost and the time associated with getting into an organization, and sometimes that ends up being a negative number. And if it's a negative number, you've got to say, no, that's too difficult for me to get within this organization. So you've either got to try and lift up that acceptance, or they've got to change their product so it's more acceptable.
So that's relative to 1.
Yeah. Works out about this big, but this is the short version if you like. All right, so these 2 slides here are from a number of researchers done on understanding technology and actually understanding innovation. So if I use Steve Jobs, he was the innovator guy, okay? But he was nothing without Steve Wozniak. He was the technical guy. Without the 2 of them, there would have been no Apple. If you take away one, there would have been no Apple. It's the same with Microsoft. You had Bill Gates and you had Paul Allen. You've got Richard Branson, and he's got a whole technical team. So there's usually a team associated with bringing a product out into a market or to within an organization. So you'll always need someone with an imagination to actually understand what the potential is of a product, and then you need the support of the technical people to actually get in there. But it's very, very difficult to get these people within a conservative company. They're normally pushed out to the side, and I've seen it. We've in the companies that I've worked with, employed these people. We've looked at them. We've gone, wow, these guys have got some fantastic idea. And the first thing we do is we indoctrinate them. We bring them in. We say, these are all our processes and procedures. You're fantastic. We like some of your ideas. Now you need to stop that thinking, and you need to actually understand what we're doing as an organisation, because this is the direction we're heading. So it's very difficult to fight that. So one of the things that I did was I hunted down these people. Psychometric testing is fantastic for hunting down these people. You would find them. Usually find that they're off in some dark room somewhere creating something on the side, and people would say, oh yeah, when we get really desperate, we go and talk to these people. And that's what they used to say to me as well. So even though I was a senior person within the company, I had senior executives say to me, when I'd bring an idea on the table, they'd go, that's fantastic, but we're not desperate enough yet to do that. I was their big insurance policy. So when things got really bad, they would ring me up and they would say, now we're desperate enough, can we do it? And it's always much harder to do it at that particular point in time. So you need to bring them forward in terms of their thinking. But these people are great for actually understanding an idea and working out how you're actually going to do it. They're really, really bad at selling that idea because they can't get it out to the general public. It's like if you're talking amongst yourselves about the products that you've got, you're going to get a different reaction than if you try and sell it to Joe Public. But Joe Public is the people that you need to be selling it to. They're the people with the opportunity. They're the people who've got the lifestyle that are going to buy it. They're the big group of people. If you're dealing at the wrong end of the curve, it's a small group of people you're trying to convince. So you need to change your pitch to work out how you would talk to a normal group of people. You need to almost grab a whole bunch of people off the street and say, here's my product. These are the opportunities. How do I fit it within your lifestyle? Because sometimes if you're up that end of the curve, it's quite difficult for you to actually understand how to bring it into people's lifestyle, because you think, wow, so perfect, it's fantastic, my product's great. I can't understand why people won't take my product. All right, so this is how the toolkit and the processes I've used to get things happening in conservative companies. So like I said, you can't change the entire company. That's too difficult to do. But when you've targeted a specific opportunity with a specific product, you can then target a specific group of people to actually bring that change within that organisation and make it much more effective. So see, these are some of the things that I do. Open or shared spaces, access to real-time and unfiltered data, flatter reporting systems, develop an adhocracy for new concepts, so get rid of the bureaucracy. So what I say to companies is that you don't need to remove your whole hierarchy, and you don't need to just unlock all that information. But for this select group of people, this cross-sectional group of people that this product is going to affect, let's do something different. For a period of 6 months while we embed the product, once it's embedded and it's reached that maturity level, you can go back to your old systems and the product will be embedded within the organization. Some simple, cost-effective, creative ideas. Exercise will always promote a good idea. If you're stuck in an idea and you walk around the block, you come back, normally you solve your problem. So when we're working on a problem and I say to the group, well, let's go for a walk around the mine or around the plant that we're in, and let's see if we can come back and solve the problem. You know, most people will say, oh, that's a waste of time. But typically as you go around, you have those conversations, and sometimes it's not even a conversation about what the problem is. When you come back, everyone feels refreshed, they're talking, the creativity is much higher, bang, you solve the problem. Things like colours. If you have a feature wall somewhere, that creates a more creative environment. I don't understand the science behind it, but the research says that that's what it does. And oddly enough, the colour purple is one of those creative colours that unleashes something in the brain. You don't need to understand it, you just need to understand that these things actually work. Standing meetings, far more productive than sitting down. Sometimes I've been in a meeting for 2 hours and your eyes start to roll over and it's really, really hard to concentrate. If you stand up, people are less likely to waffle on, they get straight to the point. You cut out that bureaucracy. Office layouts, social networks, empowerment of the employees, teaching the companies that the employees are not naturally lazy. They actually do want to work. They will want to do something. If you give them more power, they will be more productive. Some free time, space for risk, workshopping problems, diverse and multidiscipline teams. Conservative companies, when you go in there, you can tell them, because they're all in their little cubicles. They have a very much of a hierarchical situation. Oh, that's not my job. Or I have to talk to my boss. I have to talk to my boss. I have to talk to my boss. And oh, I only work with engineers, I only work with surveyors, those kind of things that you see. If you create a multidiscipline group, the ideas that they solve, and people will say, well, why do you do that? I don't know, that's the way I've always done it. We don't know why we do it, it's just the way we've always done it. Well, I don't need that information, then why am I doing it? So you answer all those questions, you find you get a greater level of productivity happening at that period of time. Now, once those conversations are happening and people feel more creative and they're thinking, wow, why didn't we do this before? That's when you come in and you slap your new product in. Bang. Because they're ripe to take on that new concept. So just recapping. When you're out there trying to sell an opportunity to someone, you want to target this group of people. These people are good to start off with, and you need some of these people to grasp the idea, get some of them moving. At that particular point of time, you want to move on from those guys and you want to target these people here, because these people here, they have the attention span of a gnat. Because someone's going to bring out something slightly different and they're going to go, wow, I like this new shiny thing, because that's what you do. These people here, you don't want to bother selling to them. It's too hard, it's too difficult, particularly when you've got this entire market here. So you need to actually understand where your market is and what you actually want to do. There's still some quite useful members of society here. These kind of people make the best maintenance people you can possibly find, because, you know, I call them defenders of the old religion. They want to hold on to something. They want to, you know, say, you keep breaking my piece of equipment. They take care of that kind of stuff. So they're really good. You also find, in this group of people, you find people like religious people, like priests, clerics, those kind of people. They tend to be these kind of people here. You know, they've believed in things for a couple of thousand years, and that's the way it should be. So you find that people will naturally gravitate to positions and roles that fit along this curve. So we talked about people who had worked for conservative companies, now going off, or large companies, and now gone off and doing your own thing. That's because you're driving towards this end of the curve here. You know, you think, there's got to be something better than this. I want to do something more with my life. What can I do? I'm all about change and new stuff and stuff like that. So you actually drive yourself towards a certain career in your life by where your style of thinking is in that respect. And back to this one here. So when we discuss things today, in terms of what your product is or your new innovation, the thing I want you to think about is, what's the opportunity that you're selling someone? How is it going to fit in their life? And how quickly is it going to fit in their life? So they're the key things in terms of, you've done the hard work, you've got this product that's better than anyone else out there, and you're thinking, wow, this is great. I've got a product that's better than anyone else. Great, you've done about a third of the work. You now need to actually understand the opportunity that's going to pose to Joe Public, and how it's going to fit in their life, and how quickly you're actually going to integrate it within their organization. And that fits within the paradigm. So it's much easier to make a product that fits in a current paradigm. If you're trying to shift a paradigm, then that's actually harder. So when we talked about the mining industry, they look for the opportunity, and they know that when they develop a product, they can get 15 years out of that product. So that's the way that they orientate their business. All right, any questions?